Hi there, it's Michelle from CNC Designs. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in New Zealand, and I'm bringing you another Global Monthly Video Hop. So if you haven't watched the video hops before, each month myself and demonstrators from around the world get together, and on the first Wednesday or Thursday, depending on what side of the world you're on, of the month, we release videos based on a theme. So this month's theme is technique. So we will all be showing you a certain technique using Stampin' Up! Products. Once you're done watching my video, if you look in the description below, there will be links to the other demonstrators' videos that are participating this month. So please hop over to their videos and have a look at the other techniques they'll be showing you. We might be showing the same technique, but used in a slightly different way. I will also list all the products that I use in this video in the description below. So if you wish to purchase any, contact your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. The product codes are there. If you're in New Zealand and don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, you can go to my website, michellekritchley.stampinup.net, to order or to contact me if you want some more information. And I also have some good tips and things under my blog at papercraftaddiction.blogspot.co.nz. So the technique I'm going to share is heat embossing, but we're going to do it slightly different. So one of the techniques I learned 30 or so years ago with card making was heat embossing, and it just amazed me. You put some powder on stamped a card, put some powder on it, heated it up, it melted, it was fabulous. What I liked about it at the time is then I could color in the images and I didn't have to worry about the ink going through the edges and mixing with the other colors. But there's so much more to it than that. I will show you a few bits from some of the Halloween suites in the September-December mini catalog from Stampin' Up! So I just wanted to have this page open because what I'm going to do is show you how to do heat embossing on the glow-in-the-dark paper. So we have this brand new paper. It's called glow-in-the-dark paper. It's only here for a limited time while the mini catalog's available. We also have these glow-in-the-dark images, bats and ghosts. And so they look white, but you shine a light on them, and then they basically suck up, I guess, the light energy. And then at night, they glow. So they kind of glow a greeny color. And you can kind of see it on that side. So it's showing some of the images. And so you can die cut them. And what people have discovered is you can actually stamp on the paper. So I'm going to be showing you that. We will also be using some of the paper from Them Bones Designer Series paper. And the main image I'm going to be showing today is we're going to use the Frankenstein image to stamp. But this set is a Tricks and Treats bundle. The dies come with one that cuts out bags, so you can see the bags here. And different designs you can put on there. So I'm sort of combining them all. I'm also using a tag from the Merriest tree dies. So in the Merriest tree dies, which is at the beginning of the catalog, there's a tag image, a nice big tag image. And I've already pre-cut some things for you. So let's get started. So because we're not doing a card, we're not using a standard card base. So what you need to do is using the die. This is the die from that set. And there's lots of dies that come in it. That's the Tricks and Treats dies. So there's dies in there that match the face of Dracula, the face of Frankenstein. We've got a boo die. We've got different pieces that you can make candy corn. So if you're from the United States, you know about candy corn. It's one of our favorite treats at Halloween. And there's a ghost. There's a little tag, a couple little tiny tag dies. And there's two dies that you put in to get different size holes in your treat bag. So the biggest die in there is for the actual treat bag. Now you can cut this with paper, or I'm doing it with cardstock and then embellishing it with paper. This cuts half of one piece, so you glue the two pieces together. So in order to get the best use out of your paper, here in New Zealand we use A4 paper and we're in metric. So I've cut my A4 paper long ways, and I cut it at 11.7 centimeters. This is 11.7 centimeters, which is also 4 5/8 of an inch. So if you cut that strip that way, then you can get 2 out of one side. Now that's, as I said, it's 11.7 or 4 5/8 that way. And this side, the paper you would need if you were going to cut separate papers, like especially if you're using designer series paper and you want the images to be going the correct direction. The bigger size is 13.3 centimeters or 5 1/4 inches. But if you cut your A4 piece or even your letter piece, 11.7 centimeters, which is also 4 5/8 centimeters, you should be able to get 2 cut out of there. When you die cut these images, put the die in, and then you can put your little circle die. So it does a couple small circles, or you can do the larger ones. Now I've tried it both ways, and I'll show you samples at the end that show both ways. So when you put it through, you can actually set that in place, as long as it's not touching the metal. So you can set it in place. But depending on how high up, that will determine what size cardstock you put for the inside. And also, if you do your cuts that way, this strip here ends up the perfect size to cut out the strange die, which fits the trick or treat word. So it's a strange looking shape, but it actually fits the trick or treat. I think it almost looks like an acorn. But here in New Zealand, we're going into spring. But in the rest of the world, they're going into autumn. But that kind of has the shape of an acorn at the top, and you could probably curve it around if you want it. But that would fit perfectly on the end piece, or you could use that to cut out other things. So I've already pre-cut and stamped that. I've also die cut the word boo. So it has a lovely die that does the word boo, and I did that one already. I cut the 3 pieces to make up the candy corn. So I did a white base, an orange bottom, and a yellow top. I know nowadays, this is kind of how it was when I was a child, growing up in the United States, but nowadays there are lots of different flavors. I think I have a candy apple flavor that I've got. If you're in New Zealand, there's a place called Martha's Backyard at Mount Wellington that you can get American food from, like Frito corn chips and candy corn and things like that. You can also order online. So if you're not in the Auckland area and you need your fix, go there. The other thing too, so that matches with this stamp set. And so the word eek, so the word trick or treat will fit there. The word eek fits in the little tags that I showed you. So I'll just show you a sample so you can get the word eek. So I've got all these out because I haven't decided what to do. You can do stars, bats, other things. Dies don't cut those out, but there are dies that cut out the faces and the house, and then you can get the shape for eek and the trick-or-treat. So we're going to be stamping and cutting on this. So this is the glow-in-the-dark paper. It's a 6x6 specialty paper, and you get 8 sheets in the pack. So it looks white in daylight, but if you grew up with glow-in-the-dark stickers or anything like that, you know that you put them under a lamp for a long time, and then at night they just have an eerie glow to them. So we're going to stamp heat emboss on this. And the reason we're doing the heat embossing, because if we stamp directly, it's got a rough surface. If we stamp directly, it doesn't give a nice solid image. And when it glows, it would glow through some of the ink. So we're actually going to heat emboss on it. So I'll do that first, show you the technique, and then we'll put the box together. So I've already cut this box I'm doing in white. So there shows you those two pieces. And I cut the little holes out. And then I cut a piece of designer series paper to fit on one side as a rectangle. Depending on where you put your circles, it's 7 centimeters wide by about 9 centimeters high, but it depends on where you put your circles. If you put your circles too low, you got to snip a bit off. And then I also cut a tag that'll be on one side. So one side will have the tag decoration. This paper here, I'll quickly show you. It's from the other set. It's the Them Bones, and it comes with 6 sheets, which I've already played with. So we've got our bats and moons and stars on one side, and the other side is the nice blue, I think that's Misty Moonlight. Let me check. Starry Sky, sorry, that's Starry Sky. And that's Pumpkin Pie, and then that's Cajun Craze. Let me check. Yep, Cajun Craze and black. So that's one piece. Another piece, you get your skeletons, bats, and moons. And the other side, you got them bones. So lots of bones. Almost looks like tire tracks to me. And it's meant to have that kind of distressed look in certain spots of it. Then there's a sheet that gives you a lot of the tombstones, which is great for that set because the dies for that set have a die that cut out a tombstone in the center of a tombstone. So it has lots that do with the bones and other things, but then the tombstones tie into this one here. And the Trick or Treat fits perfectly in the tombstones as well, which I'll show you later. And on the back, we have an interesting Halloween colored plaid. Then there's one that has the skeletons. So we got our dogs, our cats, and our skeleton. And the back of that has just got some interesting shapes in the Halloween colors. This side here, which you can see I've already chopped some out, the dies, Stampin' Up! Several years ago started having paper that matches the dies. So this big die here will cut out the big skeleton, and then there's a die that cuts out the little cat, and there's a die that cuts out the dog. There's also stamps, so you can stamp and die cut them as well. So there's our stamps there. And at the end of the video, besides showing you some of the other samples using the glow in the dark, I'll show you some other Halloween samples that I've got made up. Then there's a paper, but I've already chopped it up, so I can't show you the full sheet. I'll try to. So there's a sheet that essentially, I can try to move that one out of the way. Essentially, the 12 by 12 sheet looks like this. Okay. Making a mess on my table. So it looks like this, where you have these interesting images that you can chop out, and they'll be perfect size for card fronts. And I have some samples I can show you later. As I said, I've chopped this up. So if you were to cut this up, you end up with 4, 7, 8, 9 backgrounds all ready for you. And on the back of it is where I got the paper we're going to use for today's project. So it says Boo and Eek all over that paper. And that's got the pumpkin pie in the background. So unfortunately, you need to decide which side to chop up. Sometimes it's easy for these ones that are images that you're not necessarily going to use. But the ones with the words, you can just pop that straight onto the top of a card, and you're basically done. So you can see I've already cut out part of that. And then the last image, great for those who like to do scrapbooking. As I said, I messed up my table. So if you like to do scrapbooking, this is the final page. Well, I mean, it would be upside down, but it's made so you can cut it perfectly in half. And so essentially, if you imagine there's half your page. So you could use that at the bottom of a scrapbook page, or once you cut that in half, you can cut it into sections and make 3 or 4 cards, however you like. And that happens to be the exact same size of the die that comes with it, so you could even die cut that out. So that's the last page. Really beautiful paper. Okay, so you came here to see a technique, so let's do a technique. So we're going to do heat embossing, and from the main catalog you can buy the I think it's called Embossing Essentials. So it's a tray, it gives you the embossing buddy, a brush, and a really cool tweezer that stays shut. The way to open it is you have to push the bottom part to open it up. So that's great for holding on to your paper while you heat it. And that's a ceramic end, so it doesn't conduct the heat down the handle. So if you've ever done heat embossing and held it with your fingers or tweezers, you sometimes burn yourself. So that's in the main catalog. I will list that in the description below. But the main thing is we want to use embossing buddy. Now that just has some powder in it, and it's made so you gets rid of the static electricity on your cardstock. So whatever you're going to emboss on, you just rub it against it, and that's going to get rid of the static electricity. So in theory, your powder is only going to stick where you stamp it. The other thing you need is your Versamark. So there's the Versamark there. It's a clear stamp pad, but it's sticky, and that allows the powder to stick. Then you also need your embossing powder. So you can get your embossing powder in packs of 3. We got our essential pack, which is black, white, and clear, I believe. And then we have the other pack that has silver, gold, and I believe bronze or copper. So just get my, so there's the powder there, and a little goes a long way. So you want to have something like the tray, or I've got a container here to catch your excess powder so you can reuse it. So now that we've rubbed over there, we're going to get our stamped image. One thing I didn't prep earlier was the face. So with this set, you can, pardon my reach, you can do a background image as well. I haven't done that yet, but like, you know, I think in a lot of movies, Frankenstein is like green or bluish, different color, as well as the background head for the vampire. Now the vampire is actually 2 stamps, well 3. You got the background, and then you have the hair, and then you have the face. Frankenstein is just the face and the background image. We're not using the background image because we want the glowing to come through on our glow-in-the-dark paper. So easiest thing for photopolymer is set it on paper, not something it'll stick to let it to let it relax. Because otherwise, if you go to stick it down, you might stick it down and bend one of the pieces. So if I stuck it down like that, see how that part's bent in the wrong way? When I go to die cut it, it's not going to die cut properly. So set it down so it can relax into the proper shape, and then just push your block on top of it. Okay. So I'm just going to do this again because I've been talking so much since then. I'm just worried I might have picked up some static electricity. The other thing with it is you need to make sure you know approximately where to stamp it. So I wouldn't want to stamp it too close to something else because this is the part that's going to cut it out. So I'm going to stamp it here, and I'm just putting it that direction so I can see roughly where I need to stamp the head. And I'll just move the die out of the way. So ink it up with the Versamark. Now Versamark is sticky but clear, so you can't always see what you've inked up. And you don't want to press too hard because it's spongy. But you want to have enough where it's going to stick down and just give it good pressure. I feel like I might have moved that. Now on cardstock, you can usually see where you've stamped because it's a watermark ink, but this isn't normal cardstock, so I can't really see where I've stamped, and I'm only going to know when I pour the powder over it. So next thing you do is get your powder, and I like to just spoon it over the image and let it fall back into the container. Well, that came out pretty good. Now because this is a textured cardstock, some of the powder is going to stay on the cardstock regardless. You can give it a flick to try to get it off. Oh yeah, and it's single-sided, by the way. But there are little specks that you just can't get off because of the texture of the cardstock. That's where you bring your brush in and brush off what you can without touching your stamped image. Because if I were to heat it straight away, those loose particles will heat up and I'm just going to have a lot of splotches on my image. Normal cardstock, you don't have that problem. It's just because this is actually textured. So I know I'm going to end up with some splotches on the face of my Frankenstein, but it'll still look pretty good. Just get off best I can. Give him a bit of flick, gentle flick. Okay, so now I'm going to heat him up. And because this is a technique video, normally I would do it off screen, but I want you to actually see how the technique is done. So you need your Versamark, your embossing essentials, stamp on your cardstock, and now we're going to heat it up. So what you do is you use a heat tool, which I can't bring it too close because it's plugged in. So we sell the heat tool, and that's it there. And on the back of it, it's got a 0, 1, and 2. So there's 2 different heat settings, and it depends on what you're heating up. If you're heating up something like vellum, you want to have it only on 1, because you could burn vellum or make it bend. If you're heating up on thicker cardstock, you can go heavier. So it's going to get noisy, and I'm going to heat this up, but you're going to see how grainy that is? So the powder, and when I heat it up, you're going to see it go shiny, hopefully. Once it starts going shiny, you want to move the heat gun around to get all the other powdery parts. You don't want to stay on the shiny bit too long because it will get dull. And hopefully you can see how that's changing the texture of the stamped image. Okay. So hopefully, see how shiny it is in the head now? So it's melted the powder and it won't come off. So it's no longer powder. It's stuck on there for good. And see, it's kind of made it very solid. But you can see those flakes, as I mentioned, will show up because of the texture of this material. Normal cardstock, you won't have that issue. But at a distance, it looks fine. So now I need to die cut him. And I'm just going to put that round there, and I'm going to go die cut him. And I'll pause it to do that because you don't need to see me die cut things. Okay, so I die cut him out with that die there. And so now we have our Frankenstein face. Okay. So now let's put our bag together and decorate it. So with the bag, it's quite easy. It's got score lines. It die cuts and does score lines. Let's see. There we go. So it has score lines where you need to fold. and the skinnier part will overlap the wider part on the other piece. So this is good to use your bone folder to give you a nice, firm, crisp fold. And for this one, I used the thick basic white to give me a nice structure. If you do this with designer series paper, if you cut the bag out of designer series paper, just be aware that it might tear when you fold it, unless it's thicker designer series paper. Some of the specialty paper, which is single-sided and quite thick, would be fine, but the thinner paper, you might have issues, which is why I've gone with the cardstock base, and then I'm just going to decorate it with the designer series paper. It also uses up less paper, and I've got to make quite a few of these for gifts. So you could do your tape down the edge, or glue. Let me see if my glue is cooperating today. So just glue on the edges. You don't want too much because you don't want it to over stick. So that's the skinny edge there, and we're going to take the wider edge of the opposite one, and we're just going to set it over the top and line up the top and bottom. So line up, use your finger to help line up the top, the bottom, and then you can use your finger to slide it right up to the edge. Okay, and then turn it over. I'm not going to press on that too hard yet because having glue means I can adjust it. So I'm just going to put some glue here. I opened a new bottle and it's very sticky. And then this should just fold straight over because I've already done the one side. And then you can just slide it into the right position, top, bottom edge. And then if you gently fold it back, that's where I get my bone folder, because now I've definitely got it in the right spot. And so I can do the bone folder there and the bone folder there. Being white, any extra glue is going to show up, so I'm just going to rub that off my glue eraser. But you could use tape, you just don't have the same wiggle room with tape. Okay, and then the bottom, just pop it open, put your skinny flaps in, one wide flap, and then put your tape or glue on there. When you put your adhesive on there, don't go right to the bottom, because as you can see there is a gap and you don't want glue coming through the bottom, so we can go sides, top, and then a bit in the middle, but not at the very, very bottom. Press that down, and then you hold it in place. Use your bone folder, the fat end of your bone folder, just to rub down. Now I could have glued down those inside flaps if I wanted to, but I wasn't too concerned. Okay, so just make sure it's rectangular shaped. And then one side I'm going to put my boo, or I could put that side on, could go with the bones, but being Frankie, I thought boo was more appropriate. Kind of wish they had a skeleton one on there, but they probably don't, because they've got a whole set of skeletons, so they don't need to repeat the skeletons. So stick your paper down, and then what you can do is turn it over and stick your hand in and press on it. You could stick your embellishment on before you put the two sides together. That would work as well. Okay. Now we're going to have Frankie on this side. Frankenstein. Frankie is if I know him. And we'll have a boo there as well. So I think boo at the bottom with Frankie at the top. Oh, and I haven't glued together my treats. So I'm going to put some glue on my treats, my candy corn. And then instead of trying to pick up the piece that has glue on it and getting glue all over me, I'm just going to stick the top one on, and then I can just slide it into place. If you have teeny tiny things you're gluing down, put the glue onto there and then put the tiny thing on top of the glue. Okay, so like this I could just glue at the bottom because I know where it's going to go, and then pick the piece up and stick it over the glue. So you could have any color candy corn you want. Could even turn that into a tag. I could just stamp some words at the bottom and a hole at the top, and it could be just a tag hanging there. Now I think that's going to go on the back and with our trick or treat. So I'm just going to glue this one down. Just at an interesting angle. Again, I can just turn it over and put my hand through. Give good pressure on there. And use some dimensionals for my trick or treat. Now, see, I stamped on both sides because that one got blotchy, so I just turned it over. And just a couple dimensionals right in the center part. Yeah, we'll just pop the trick or treat there. Now Frankie I'm going to have here at a funny angle. So I'm just going to, this is quite wide, this word, so you're able to glue it easily, but if you want, you could use adhesive sheet on the back of your cardstock. Make it easier to glue. But you don't need a lot, just along some of the lines. There we go. And I'm just going to put him straight, I think. And then Frankie, I'm going to pop him up with some dimensionals. I like to cut my dimensionals in half so I don't waste them so much. It also helps. Cut them in half, I can fit it right in his little, I was going to say ear, but that's not his ear, that's his, what is it called? Electrical, I don't know, it's the screws that the electricity went through to his head. So I'm not sure the technical term for it. And I might just pop, where'd my scissors go? Gonna trim one more just to put in the middle of the back. I can't find my scissors. There we go. So if you haven't done heat embossing before, give it a try. It's really fun. And it's just surprising how different it makes things look. I'm just going to put him at a bit of an angle. And now I'm going to get out my cord. So that's the back, and this is going to be the front. Yeah, I think that way maybe. So because I put the holes in there, I need handles. And this is one of our new ribbons. This is a copper ribbon, and it comes in a pack with the natural ribbon, which is quite wide, so I'm not using that. And I think it looks quite good if you just stick it through and tie a knot. So stick it through and then tie a knot, and then you can stick it through the other side. It's, even though it's copper, it kind of looks like orange, so I'm just doing a knot. Nope, trying to do a knot. That's why I haven't taken it off the reel, because I need a lot of space just to get the knot done. Kind of a loose knot. And with this one, even though the holes are small, I find I need to tie 2 knots because one knot is not wide enough. So hopefully you enjoyed this project. If you're not into Halloween, at least you're learning how to heat emboss. The glow-in-the-dark paper, some people use it for things other than Halloween. The other thing you might have noticed on mine, which I'll show you some samples soon, is there's dies in the bone set that cut out bats and bones and moon and stars, so you can get those. So I'm going to finish this off screen and come back. Okay, so I got them through and tied a double knot so they're strong enough to hold things, and it just gives you that interesting look on the outside. So that's the back, and so the front, I've tied a little ribbon with a bow. This is a black shimmery ribbon, which was from last year, but this year we have a blue one. I'll put in the description below. And the twine is from our set. You can get all 5 different twines in the Baker Twine Essential Pack. So we're going to pop this guy up on some dimensionals, and I found my scissors while I was there. So with dimensionals, I like to actually cut them in half, and then I don't have to use quite as many. They last longer if I do that. So I cut a few sets in half, and then I just put them angled in the corners and just put them in the areas that are going to need a bit of support, because you don't need a lot of dimensionals. It's going to be held in place pretty well. And then just maybe a couple across the center. There we go. That paper actually looks quite nice on the back. I'm going to have to make another one with that side. Actually, I don't think I can, because I think I've used all of that paper up. So I'll have to buy some more paper. I find sometimes with the designer series paper, there's certain images that you like better than others, and you use them up quickly. So I'm just going to put that at an angle. Boo. And again, you can just push it down from the inside. And there you go. So heat embossed on the glow-in-the-dark paper, which unfortunately I can't show you because it's not dark here. And that tag's from the Christmas one, and these are from the same one. And then Trick or Treat on the back. And so you got yourself a cute little treat bag. Pop some lollies in there, maybe some candy corn. Now, I'll show you some other ones I've done already. So this one is using the paper that has the cemetery in the back. I stamped the word "eek" there. And this, if you look, his face looks slightly different. I used a blending brush and did a little green blending on there to see how it would look. It does still glow in the dark, but you wouldn't want to go darker than that, because if it gets too dark. So if you're not using glow-in-the-dark paper, then you can just stamp his background face in whatever color you want. And then on that side, there's the Trick or Treat inside one of the tombstones. And I fussy cut those words out. the little cemetery bit, I fussy cut that out. There's not a die for that, but I stamped that one. Then we've got this one. With the ghost, there's a die that cuts the ghost, and then I just put a piece of black cardstock behind the cutout openings so you'd have the dark eyes, so that'll glow in the dark quite nicely. And the same tag there, this time I used pumpkin pie, and then the same background that we had for that guy. I'll just leave that background there. And here is the Dracula. Trouble is, if you get the smudging around the teeth, it doesn't come out as well. But then I also cut some of the dies of the die with the little bats here. And then on the back, the Trick or Treat. Now, because it's black cardstock, I heat embossed it with white. So, and I did get some speckles coming here and there. Excuse me. So the heat embossing powder comes in a pack of 3. You get the white, the black, and clear. So gives you a good way to use it. This is some retired ribbon. Now, a few other ones that I did. There's the one with the skeleton. This skeleton was die cut straight from the paper. So that die that I said will cut the skeleton, it cut it straight from the bigger piece of paper. And then on the back, I did the house from this set, and there's a die for that. I stamped the ghost on black and I heat embossed it with white. but I fussy cut that out, and then I've got the words boo on there. And then this one here, there is a die that cuts that crooked line. So it cuts that line, and it's big enough to go on one side of the die. So you'd have to die cut the background bag, and then you die cut again with that line at the top, and then glue the two together. And so this time, instead of doing the big image, I stamped the other images, heat embossed them in white on black cardstock. And then when you die cut these, the die for that, it leaves a little end bit with a circle in it, so you can put your brads. So if you have a look, I can actually move the body parts on this guy. So those shoulder bits and stuff, those are brads holding it in place. So that's an interactive card. And the back I just left plain because it was quite good. I might put the word boo, or, oh no, I got boo there. I might put some more bats or something on the back. So those are the boxes. I hope you enjoyed that. But I have some cards to show you. So just to show you that Trick or Treat's inside of that piece. So there's a die that cuts the cemetery tombstone, I guess. And you can have the words Trick or Treat is from a different stamp set, but it fits perfectly. And then these are more of those images cut from the paper. So the same as that. They have different color images. There's even dogs and cats that cut out. So let me show you. Card time. So some of the Halloween cards I've already done. So that, again, is with that background piece, which I used the other side for there. So you get certain sizes, and then after I cut it out, I used the deckled rectangle on it. And there's the fence. There's one of the dogs just cut straight from the paper. The die cuts the paper. The cat, some of the bats, and the boo. I stamped some of the bats in the background as well. And then there's the inside. So this was a combination of those two sets. Basically combined the stamps from both these sets. And then this one here, I used the letters to cut out the word boo. And again, just used the decal and did two different designer series paper. Those are cut out straight from the paper. That's why I've got an orange dog. And then I just stamped some bones and things on the inside. This is similar to the other one where I heat embossed it, but this time I used black brads, and you can move them around. It's so cute because the dies for this come with hats and flowers, bow ties, shoes. I haven't even played enough with it yet, and so no bones about it. You're a sweet friend, and then just the Happy Halloween on the inside. So that's similar to this guy here. And then this, again, heat embossed on black, and there has some of those glow-in-the-dark images, but also on the inside, that's from the glow-in-the-dark paper. So those are the bits that I showed you earlier that I cut out of the paper. I stuck them inside there. So I did the tombstone and cut the inside out of the tombstone. And so that gives me a shaker card. So that'll look really nice in the dark. And the background is from that designer series paper, that one rectangular piece. And then Happy Halloween there. And then this one, again, it combined the two stamp sets. So I did the rest in peace around there. Fussy cut, rather, some of the tombstone pieces. The dog, heat embossed. And then that was just cut out of white cardstock. So when I did this part, the inside bit, I didn't cut that side of it, so it can open. And then on the inside, I've got the cat. So there you go, bonjour, and boo to you. So that's that one there, and then the inside. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you have a happy Halloween. And see that you can stamp on the new glow-in-the-dark paper. And please give me a thumbs up if you did. Make sure that you go to look in the description below to find one of the other demonstrators' videos to click on to see what techniques they're sharing with you this month. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that. And boo to you!